Rooster, you did good. I appreciate you not biting me. This is Rooster, and this is Rooster's roadmap to success. Focus. Now, when I first got here for the session, knowing that he is reactive to people, and I've got a handful of treats here, so if you see him going out my hands, I just want to keep him in the shot. But basically, knowing that he was reactive, I called ahead of time, and we set up a stage scenario. And we did a lot of BAT training in this session. That's the video that's above this, behavior adjustment training, which is a great way of dealing with dogs that have any sort of aggression, whether it's fear-based, insecure, territorial, because the idea is we create scenarios and situations where the dog stumbles upon the behavior we want, down, and then we reward him when he does it, and we kind of create a stage scenario so he doesn't have the options to do a lot of other things that we don't want. That's the benefit of creating a staged scenario. So when I first got here, and I'm just going to kind of recap what we did just because the guardian might want to recreate it with other friends, before I came over, outside the front door, I took these high-value Tricky Trainer, these are chicken liver training treats, and I created a trail from his door, basically leading to me about 200, 300 feet away from his house, and he brought the dog out to me. Now, when he was going to the door, the dog was excited. So I told him ahead of time, and I didn't see this, but I told him when you start walking down the stairs and you get to the door, if you reach for the door, the dog gets excited, stop. Don't give the dog any commands, wait. I call this light switch off. We're moving forward, light switch on. As soon as you start showing me behavior I don't like, we stop. Pulling on a leash, I stop. So I turn the light switch off. And we wait for the dog's energy to settle down on his own. We're not telling him to sit or lie down or micromanaging him in any way. We're just simply stopping. And as soon as his energy settles down, then we start walking again. So he had to go through, going to the door and reaching for the handle a couple times, and eventually opened one door, opened the next door, came out, started pointing out the treats. Then he was also kind of scanning the floor looking for the treats. And he's leading himself, his guardian was leading Rooster on a trail to come to meet this new person. Well, if I'm on a trail to meet somebody and a lot of good stuff happens along the way, that's going to make me have a positive association and put me in a pretty good mood when I meet this person, which is going to help things. And then what we did is we let him, and every time that Rooster, this is demand barking, so I'm not even going to look at him when he does that, because if I do, that's validating. So every time that Rooster started pulling towards me, his guardian just stopped. And luckily, Rooster started, after he strained against the leash a little bit, then he would turn and come back. When he came back, then I would have the guardian take 1 or 2 more, 3 more steps towards me. And as soon as the dog started pulling it, we stopped. So we had to start and stop several times, but eventually he got close enough to me, and I had him sit down on the grass next to me, but keep the distance so the dog couldn't get close to me, but not all the way to me. And we waited, and Rooster sat down, and then Rooster laid down. I was throwing treats at him. Eventually I was giving him treats out of my hand. Well, actually, the thing before we did the hand, I had the guardian get up and move him away. We give that a little bit of a reset. Then I had him sit on the curb about 15, 20 feet away. We relaxed and gave the Rooster a treat or two. Then we repeated coming back, and we stopped every time the Rooster started pulling, and eventually got back to the original position there next to us. Now I'm feeding him treats out of my hand. He's nice and relaxed. Then coming back in, I took kind of a curved approach back to the front door, and I had the guardian about 15 feet behind me with Rooster, not letting Rooster pull, and Rooster's kind of following along and getting my scent as he's coming back to the door. Then once we came back inside, I had him tether Rooster to the couch, and I sat basically about right here, outside of Rooster's reach. I waited for Rooster first to sit, and then to lay down, and then I went and got him some water. I kept on providing some treats. But because we took a measured approach, and every time I reached out for him, he turned his head to the side, unlike now. Okay, I'll give you one for a shake. But if you reach for a dog and it turns its head to the side, it's the dog's way of saying, I don't want you to touch me. Most of us think, well, I'm going to do something good for you. I'm going to touch you, and it's okay. Well, if the dog doesn't want you to touch him, even though your intent is good, you're not listening to the dog, and that breaks the dog trust. And a lot of dogs, that creates a dog thinking, I have to correct and nip at this human because he's not getting my message. So instead, I reach for him, and he turns his head to the side, I pull back. And I did that several times throughout the session, and now you can see I can reach over and pet him. I pulled away a little bit, but not to the same extent. I've earned his trust through my actions, not by forcing him or by petting him or giving him ad nauseum treats, but creating stage scenarios where he was able to develop and do good things, and good things happened when they did. Now, I was really, I expected him to be a little bit more aggressive than he was. And he settled down so well that I really think in his case, I think he just thinks that he has to protect his human. He doesn't see his human as an authority figure because really he only had a couple of rules, and he's probably under-exercised. So we started off by talking about exercise and the importance. He is a herding breed. These guys have a tremendous amount of stamina. They need a lot of exercise. So right now he's getting about a half an hour's exercise a day. He probably needs closer to an hour and a half to 2 hours of exercise. So I came up with some creative solutions for the Guardian. So actually I'll show you one right here. Just stay right there, just turn it to film us. Hey buddy. So there's a stairway to the front door. Return. So what you could do is just come over here and literally just throw treats up and down the stairs. Just follow me. And so I would make going down and up 1. So at first I would throw the treat down, he goes down and gets it, and maybe say the word down. And then ask him to come back up to you. When he comes up, say up. I would come up with more imaginative commands. Remember, dogs can read your facial expressions, so come up with funny command signals. I worked with one guy in California at, I think, Huntington Beach. His upstairs was his office, his downstairs was his home, and he had a home office, obviously, so he would call it, going up the stairs, he called it business, going down the stairs, he called pleasure. And so again, funny command words like that. So one of the things I recommend the Guardian do is start an exercise journal. Write down the date at the top, write down the time, and how long the walk was in the morning. One of the things the Guardian can do is get him, he already has one, a doggy backpack. Come. Put a dog backpack, put a couple bottles of water, some sand or something in it. Now the walk is more efficient. This is a creative solution, going up and down. I also showed him, I gave some tips on getting the dog to learn how to fetch. Fetch is a wonderful way to burn excess energy. My personal favorite way of burning excess energy is what I call dog skiing. I don't know how to ride a skateboard, so I put on rollerblades, and I put a harness on my dog, and I have it pull me for about 3 miles. I can do 3 miles in about 15 to 20 minutes. When I get back, my dog is like that energy. You can film him real quick. They're tired, they're panting, and I've depleted that excess energy in a very efficient way in a very short period of time. So what we want to do is write down the length of time, how long the walk was, how many up and downs. I would call it going down and up as a 1. And and the first time I would do it is I would just have treats and I would go up and down with an empty stomach. Keep on doing it until he just stops coming over to you and refuses to go down. And that way you know, okay, 29 is his maximum. Okay, so I'm going to start practicing like 19 or 15 or whatever it is. So in the exercise journal, write down the time and how many up downs. Also use it, if you use the dog backpack, make sure you incorporate that. You can also Google scent games. Having a dog find treats by its nose is causing it to use its brain, which is very mentally stimulating, which is also physically draining. And then maybe rollerblading or whatever else we do. So basically throughout the day we're going to sprinkle these exercises in. I'd like him to see him getting like rollerblading in the morning, some up downs shortly after his Guardian comes back home from work, then maybe a walk and half an hour later, and then maybe some scent games or fetch or whatever it is. Write all these things down, and then at the end of the day give him a letter grade from A through F of how his overall behavior was. And if he got a C minus, okay, the next day maybe we add in 5 more up downs, or an extra walk, or an extra game of fetch, or whatever it is. And keep on doing that until eventually it gets to the point where you're like, wow, that was an A day, Rooster. Now we know the roadmap to success. We know what he needs in order to burn off that excess energy. And when he gets rambunctious or barky or demand barking, you should interpret that as he needs a little exercise. Come over here and do a couple quick up downs. All right, let me see, what else we go over? We went over the importance of rules and structure. Really, he had like 2 rules beforehand. So I went through a number of rules for the Guardian, not being allowed the furniture, not being allowed the human when the human's eating food or preparing food in the kitchen, having to sit at doors, not being able to, having to wait for permission to eat his food, having to see the human eat their food first. All these little things that are rules that there's no barrier. So if the dog has to sit here and wait while there's food in his bowl across the room, and he has to wait and watch his human eat the food first and then give permission to go and eat, well, the dog has to practice self-restraint because he's the one, it's not a leash that's preventing him from getting there, it's himself. And repeating that over and over helps the dog develop more and more self-control, which will help with his impulse control and a lot of other problems. I also went over the importance of rewarding desired actions and behaviors. I'm going to do it here in a second if he LAYs. Now, one of the things is he likes to bark for attention. Now, if he's barking for attention, there we go, crash. That's passive training, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But right now I'm talking about petting with a purpose. So if he comes up and barks at me, if I used to even look at him to say, be quiet, oh, it's working. If I bark even harder, maybe he'll give me more attention. So if he's barking for attention, it's demand barking, you have to completely ignore it. Because otherwise, attention itself is validating. He looked at me. So, and as soon as he stops demand barking, and there's been longer than 3 seconds, I tell him to sit. When he sits, pet him under his chin and say the word sit. So what we're saying is if you tell the human what to do, nothing happens. If the human tells you what to do and you do it, there's a reward. Now you have motivation, and you're building up respect for the human because the human is the provider of treats if you do desired actions and behaviors. Now, after a while, what's going to happen is he can come and sit in front of you. Say, look, sucker, I'm sitting down. Or shouldn't you be petting me? And we should as much as we can. Or if he's already sitting, ask him to come and sit over here or lay down. He has to do something to change his state or prepay by offering a desired behavior on his own. And make sure when we do that, we do pet him. Whenever possible, try to pet him under his chin, remember, and never pet him on top of the head. And whenever you give a treat, say the command word after the treat goes in the mouth. Don't exaggerate the word. So say sit, sit. Say it. You can always say sit, that's fine, but always be consistent in how you say it. Now, passive training, which is what I just showed you, is waiting for the dog to voluntarily offer you a desired action or behavior, and within 3 seconds, petting them or rewarding them or correcting them. Now, remember, you have 3 seconds to pet or reward a dog for them to have the ability to make the connection, but it has to be repeated over and over and over again. So this is why it's really important to develop good habits and to be consistent, because that really impacts how they learn. They learn through consistency, repetition, and good timing. So if every time he comes to me, I pet him and say the word come, well then, when I call him to come, he is much more inclined to do it because every time I come to him, I get a treat and attention. So that's coming to the human is a great way of asking for treats and attention. And now we have a basket full of toys here, which is awesome. A lot of my clients have like 3 toys for the dogs. Every time the dog brings something over, we should name it. Maybe call this one Chick-fil-A. Maybe call the next one Pete. There's a slice of pizza in there. But whatever these things are, coming up with funny command words. And these guys are really smart. So now he has a whole bucket full of official command words. And we can, if he's starting to get a nuisance, we can ask him to go give us Chick-fil-A. And we play fetch with it or whatever it is. I also showed the guardian how to create directional commands. So if I want, let's say that there's a doorway right here, and that's the hallway, and I want to teach him to leave the room, what I would do is touch his nose with a treat, throw it right outside the room. When he goes out and gets it, I say the word out. And when he comes back, out. I would have the guardian do this with practice going out of each portal or doorway of the room twice, and then reverse it and have the dog go the other direction from here in. But I would just say out for all of them because out really means to move away from me. And do that like twice a day for a week, and after a week you'll be able to say out to get out of the kitchen, and he, just like that, he'll leave the room for you voluntarily. Let me see, what else? I went over the escalating rules or escalating consequences, which are ways to enforce those rules. Remember, hiss, stand, march. If you forget how to do those, message me. I'm happy to send you an email with a link to it. Now, we already know some good commands, but come. Even though that's not what he wanted the treat. I only have a half a treat left. I want to keep him in the shot. So petting him is just as good a reward. Obviously, this is a better reward, but he'll take what he can get. Let me see. Get X mats to keep him off the furniture. For the bed, for the dog bed, I went through showing the guardian how to teach him to use the dog bed on command. I would have another one that we get for here, one for the bedroom. And again, make them a little bit bigger than this. Make sure that they're a solid color, no pattern. Dogs' eyes are not very good for detail or for color. Let me see, what else do we go over? Okay, so the bat training. I'd like you to get in a habit of doing that like once a day minimum for a month. But if you do it a couple times a day, it's great. But make sure you exercise him first, put him in a position to succeed. So exercise him up, downs, or whatever it is, and he's going to be breathing heavy. Of course, you're not doing it now. But usually when they have their mouth open, we call that dry panting. And so wait for him to stop doing that before we go take him outside. Then go to a park. Go somewhere where there's going to be dogs not off leash and not too many people, and especially not with I talked about in the video above, if there's a weed eater or a siren or something that's going on, that can create tension and stress and put him in a position to fail. So if that's the case, then pull the plug and go somewhere else. But find like areas, parks, or places where there are going to be a couple other dogs and some people, so you can kind of linger around them. Now, I like using the cheese as I talk about in the video. That's a nice way to sprinkle on the ground and help the dog practice being close to someone without lunging at them. Make sure you get gloves because you don't want to get that burn. But the idea is to practice that BAT training, behavior adjustment training, in controlled scenarios. Now, if you have a friend that can come over and have that friend in your field right out here, that's awesome. Sometimes it backfires because now it's close to the dog's area he thinks he's protecting. So you might have to go to a different park. But it's best if you can have control of the helper dog or person, so that way we can control the situation. Sometimes we need the person to move or move slowly or run. In the video we have above, I had her running and clapping at times to provoke a stronger response for him. Now remember, you can't ever have any tension on the leash, and let the dog lead you. Don't lead the dog. I led in the video above just for demonstration purposes. If the dog wants to move away, that's fine. He might be saying, hey, I don't like the look of that guy. Crash. I'm sorry, your word is down. All right, is there anything else I'm forgetting? All right, well, this is Rooster, and I've worked with about 3,000 dogs. So this is the first Rooster I've worked with. Usually most dog names I've worked with a couple dogs with that same name. You're unique, buddy. Shake. Shake. This is Rooster, and this is Rooster's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it. One more shake. Come on. Shake.